things in Pawtucket in Inquiry Week number 2.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
Hope your Thanksgiving was a special one with your family. Greetings. Nice to have you in on this Monday in the snow. Oh, you know what? I forgot to make, I need to remind me tomorrow. I want to show you a picture of my yard. 3 inches of snow, plow, bang! I mean, it's like no excuse. I'm ready to make a federal issue out of this whole thing. I've gone through 4-foot snowstorms with no damage to the lawn, 3 inches, and some guy just, I don't know where he was looking, but it just, you know, welcome to December, the winter. Ugh. Anyway, that's why they call it state of mind. It's on my mind. Okay, listen, we've done a lot of things in Pawtucket. Joe Cammarano's here, by the way, from Providence College to help us understand what's happening in it's really week 3, but it's episode 2. Now the Judiciary Committee is taking over on the impeachment process, and it's going to look a little different. So we'll get to that. A headline here, this is a major deal going on in the city of Pawtucket. People are going to get confused early on because they think it's a replacement for McCoy. It is not. Governor Raimondo was at the Visitor Center at Pawtucket, which is gorgeous, by the way. You really ought to visit it, with the announcement today, along with Mayor Grebian, the heads of state at the State House, and the new developer.
It is a $400 million that will establish a professional soccer team from a leading national league here in Rhode Island, here in Pawtucket, a revitalization of Pawtucket's waterfront and downtown, and in the process of doing this, the creation of thousands of jobs. We believe close to 4,000 jobs will be created by this project. The project includes 280,000 square feet in retail and office space, 215 residential units, a 200-room hotel, and 170,000 square foot indoor sports and event center. Yeah, wow is right. It's going to be gorgeous. It's going to be gorgeous.
All right, so the breakdown is an interesting one. Brett Johnson, who is the Fortuitous, that's the name of the company, Fortuitous Investment Group leader, will be here later in the week, most likely our Friday program, to lay out his entire vision of what's going on. So if you know the Apex building, right? So McCoy was going to go to the Apex building. They couldn't make a deal on the Apex building. Newsflash, they still haven't made a deal on the Apex building. They are in negotiations, and they are lots of millions of dollars apart. Eminent domain is a threat which will, you know, create some bad taste in a lot of people's mouths for the development. And so they got to get that Gates family on board here, and we'll see what the number ends up being. But we have a 3-phase deal. Here is on the left, the soccer stadium is on the left, okay? That is phase A. That's 7,500 feet. I'm sorry, 7,500 people. So here's another look at the stadium from the other side. They're going to put a footbridge along the river underneath 95, and from across the stadium there, you'll be able to river walk. So on the right there is the river. This thing moves really fast. Now that's the Apex site right there. That is the 3rd site. So there you go. Stadium on the left, landing on the right with retail and residential, and then up underneath the highway on the other side is the Apex site, which becomes the entertainment center. There's a lot of rumor, in addition to the sourcing that I have, about what really is going to happen here. I mean, there's a chance that they don't even do that entertainment site at the Apex building because some other major company might be interested in investing there. More on that as we go. We do have this major company in Pawtucket that's been looking around for a new spot. So a lot happening. McCoy is still a question mark. And so what happens with McCoy is anybody's guess. The Commerce folks who have helped to put this deal together suggest that minor league baseball is still a possibility. I was quick to respond to the Secretary of Commerce, Stefan Pryor, earlier today to tell him he's nuts. So knock it off. and we'll have that on the radio for you. That's crazy. Minor league baseball is dismantling. So there's no way that we're investing in minor league baseball there. What is the default plan is a municipal building or a municipal complex with maybe a combination of Tolman and Shea high schools, and taking out McCoy, which takes $10 million or more to take it down. So the state better not run away on Pawtucket if McCoy needs to be completely rehabbed. There is some feeling that this developer may want to develop McCoy for another purpose. Follow me? A lot of things going on, big moment. Nobody has worked harder than Don Grebian, the mayor of Pawtucket, to save his city and to create economic development. And you folks ought to thank him for that. The governor, the Speaker of the House and the Senate President set up some legislation that allowed some of the financing opportunities here. The Senate President did what he could to save the Paw Sox. The Speaker of the House ought to be apologizing for the whole mess. But onward and upward, there is more private development money in this project than the baseball project. You know what? They could have done both. Okay, that's my thinking on that. In the meantime, you have to have this screw up. We don't have a holiday without this. We have to have a Christmas tree controversy. So she got herself an artificial tree at $6,500 of donated money. I don't know, man. Is there anybody with less than a tin ear in that office who would just say, look, we got all these tree farms. If we can't put a whole long big tree, why don't we have a little tree from every tree farm? Can you help me help her? Do we need to have a Christmas tree controversy again? I don't know. Actually, let me go to my political consultant on this. I didn't bring you in for that, but do we have to have another Christmas tree problem, for God's sake?
It's only a problem if people complain about it.
Well, people are going to complain about it.
Yeah, I know. But we don't have to sort of create the echo chamber.
No, but
it's such a minor issue. Let's talk about whether
doubt.
civic education is really being provided to the kids in Providence. Let's talk about
Joe, if
redevelopment in Pawtucket.
if I could get the people to focus on the things that matter. But the truth is that you've got the whole tree farm industry now in Rhode Island going nuts over the idea that she went artificial. You just don't need to pick those kind of battles. Okay. You just don't need to do it. Just
if I were working on the governor's staff, I would say, that York guy said something. You might as well give him credit for it. Small tree from every tree farm you can in Rhode Island. It sounds like a really good strategy. I don't know if the fire marshal would go along with that.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Or do what Pawtucket does, have a gazillion trees that people donate on the lawn.
Okay, then.
Like they do in Slater Park.
Give me a headline. Let's move on. Okay. Give me your executive summary, your 90-second executive summary as to what the week will be. You got Mr. Nadler, Congressman Nadler, the Judiciary Committee, which is where impeachment is crafted.
Yeah, the Judiciary Committee begins meeting on Wednesday. And people who are defenders of President Trump are going to begin to think that Adam Schiff is milquetoast compared to what they're about to experience. And the same is true for the other side, that the Republicans and the Democrats on the Judiciary Committee are much more highly partisan. They're much more focused on this question of whether he should be impeached, and they're going to open it up to a conversation about the Mueller report. And so what I would say is, don't buy any alcohol in your house this week because you're probably going to drink it all when this starts.
On Wednesday.
That's what I'm doing. I'm keeping the house free of alcohol and I'm meditating instead.
All right.
It's going to be very, very tempestuous.
All right, so when we come back, we'll see if we can pick the dry Providence College professor's brain on this, because there are nuances other than temperament. Stay with us. So to reorient you, the latest on impeachment here from the network.
President Trump called the impeachment inquiry a hoax as he headed to London for a NATO summit.
This is one of the most important journeys that we make as president. And for them to be doing this and saying this and putting an impeachment on the table, which is a hoax to start off with.
The House Judiciary Committee will hold a hearing Wednesday with constitutional experts discussing the grounds for impeachment. The president's lawyers were invited to question the witnesses.
We are certainly hoping that the president, his counsel, will take advantage of that opportunity. If he has not done anything wrong, we're certainly anxious to hear his explanation of that.
But last night, the White House's lead attorney sent a letter to Chairman Jerry Nadler declining the opportunity, calling it a baseless and highly partisan inquiry.
This is a complete American waste of time right here. The problem is that Jerry Nadler and the rest of them have already got in their mind they're writing the articles of impeachment, whether they have fairness or process or all.
The House Intelligence Committee is now finalizing a report about what it discovered during its weeks-long impeachment investigation. The Intelligence Committee interviewed more than a dozen witnesses, and Democrats say their testimony proves the president abused his office.
The president decided to pressure a foreign government to target an American citizen for political gain.
Intelligence Committee members will review the report this afternoon and are expected to vote on it tomorrow.
All right, so intelligence votes on the report to send it to judiciary.
That's right.
That's it.
That's correct.
That says, okay, there you go, Jerry. Have yourself a ball with this whole thing.
And so the judiciary then takes that report along with a report that the administration or oversight committee has, or any recommendations from them, and then they can look at any other legal issues, including the Mueller report. And so this broadens out possibly. And as we saw with two members, one on either side, it's highly partisan already. Everybody has their mind made up. It's going to be a Donnybrook, to use a football term.
And one should note here that Congressman Cicilline is on the House Judiciary and has not been shy. He is no wallflower in this himself.
I think, you know, for Rhode Islanders' sake, Cicilline is going to get a lot of recognition because he is a very sharp, precise attorney, and so he has the sorts of skills that a prosecutor would have. And so he's probably going to be one of the star people on the Democratic side.
But here's the thing. So Wednesday they're going to have, they're going to start, rather than with key witnesses, they're going to have witnesses who are more consultative in nature. They're going to talk about history, protocol, constitutional ways and means, methods, to try to talk about the substantial nature of these hearings and whether or not, I think it's kind of an exercise that America, if it watches, needs to go through, which is, this is why we're doing this, and I'm sure the spin's going to be, see what these people are saying? We are compelled to do this. This is not a partisan witch hunt.
I do think that the strategy for the Democrats is to frame the questions, to say, all right, why are these actions substantial enough to warrant impeachment? And I think that, you know, they're going to build on the constitutional framework, the debates of the framers, Federalist 75, I believe, which has, you know, the passage about Hamilton arguing this is exactly why you want impeachment if a president oversteps their boundaries. So, yeah, I think you're going to get a lot of that. I'm not sure it's just going to have much of an effect on the people in the room. I think your point about the American people watching is a good one. We'll see what happens, though.
Well, to that, Joe, what do you think? What do you think in terms of America's attention span for this? Because, you know, we're 20-second bumper sticker billboard type of folks right now. You know, something, give me flash, give me quick on my phone. We had the 7 or 8, you know, key witnesses that had us all kind of watching, those who care about the process. Right now, a rinse and repeat, anything that feels like rinse and repeat will just, you know, I would think will lose the attention span, not gain the attention span of Americans.
Well, and I think it'll also be seen as overly dramatic and overkill, and I think that that's one of the big risks, is that, you know, I've always been in favor of people doing their job, not trying to win a particular argument. And so I would love to see a Democrat say, you know, I don't think this rises to the threshold yet. Zoe Lofgren has sort of suggested that so far, although she's more convinced on the Ukraine issue. On the Republican side, I would love to see a Republican say, you know, I don't want President Warren or President Biden or President Sanders to do these sorts of things. So I think that this does go beyond partisanship and it goes to a national question. I doubt that's going to happen. I just, I'm not cynical, but I do think this generation has so fouled up politics that I don't expect much change.
This generation of elected officials.
This generation of elected officials who were elected by this generation.
Meaning our generation.
Yeah, I would say the baby boomers and Gen X.
Older.
Have messed
Younger.
things up.
Younger. Am I younger?
I would say, yeah.
I'm a younger baby boomer.
You're the end of the boom.
I'm the end of the boom. I'm
technically,
year one.
Some definitions you are
1961, by the way, in case you're wondering. 1961.
And I'm 60. So I was the last year of the baby boom by social scientists, but some go up to 64. You're kind of in this hole. You're nobody, I guess.
But the boomers, you're making a really emphatic point here. It's compelling.
The boomers have totally messed up politics. And the younger generations, I would say millennials, particularly younger millennials, and Gen Z, whatever we're calling them now, they're the ones who see that this is so fouled up. But I don't think we could ever get out of it. I think we're stuck. It's over. We just need to get new, younger leadership to move to the next phase of our history. I really do. I'm not exaggerating. I think baby boomers have messed up so much in our society. We have more inequality than ever. We have a polarized political system where we demonize the opposite sides. We've messed it up. Our turn is over. We should go away. Until that happens, we're going to have the same vitriol and the same sort of people throwing it up and going, both sides are jerks. Yeah. I don't mean to be cynical. I think there's hope for the future. I don't
know what to do with that.
Yeah, well, I don't either. To be honest, my answer would be.
It sounds like a professorial paper on.
That's the book. That's my book.
Sure. But
right. The book I'm not writing, of course.
Well, maybe it's the book you should be writing. But I'm trying to think now, based on your feeling that way. We still have to deal with the imperfect baby boom-led time right now, and this next few weeks is going to be really important. So practically, what we do, we'll come back and talk about, come back from 36,000 feet and get to the practical. Not that 36,000 feet is not important, but the practical, because guess what? The president's still not cooperating on this whole thing while he cries that it's not fair to him. Stay with us.
Why don't you send one of your lawyers to represent your point of view before the House impeachment inquiry? Because the whole thing is a hoax. Everybody knows it. All you have to do is look at the words of the Ukrainian president that he just issued, and you know it's a hoax. It's an absolute disgrace what they're doing to our country. Thank you.
I don't know why people even film him anymore. You can't tell what he's saying, whether he actually believes it. I just think we should
in the
stop
same way
covering
that the Republican contingents on both committees will argue that this is an unfair process. He's not even sending counsel, so he's not participating in the unfair process.
Right,
but
because they wouldn't allow him to send counsel.
Right.
And now they say, okay, send counsel.
Send counsel. Now he's saying that.
You know that no matter how far they move over, the bar is going to move further back.
Notwithstanding your feeling about the boomer generation screwing up America, you've said to me in the past that you believe that that the House needs to move forward on the impeachment process.
Yeah, I do, and
have a responsibility to do so.
They have a responsibility to do it, and they have a responsibility to do it constitutionally, not in a partisan way. And so Democrats have to, in my view,
calm down,
be very reasonable, and think about the national interest, not their own partisan interests. And if it hurts them in the election, so be it. Republicans have to do the same. I have a little hope that Democrats will, because there are some members of the committee who are very reasonable. The Republicans, James Sensenbrenner, might, but I doubt it. I don't see a whole lot of hope when Jim Jordan and Doug Collins and a number of other Republicans already have gone on TV to say this is ridiculous, this is terrible. The reality is that they should be serving the national interest, and they're not. I get why, and that's why I'm not all that optimistic.
I just wonder, the polarization, as you point out, is just ridiculous. I mean, Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, like 3 times now has suggested on national TV that the Ukrainians are involved in the Clinton side of this and promoting Clinton, the whole mail server thing and blah, blah, blah. And he relies on two articles that are outliers, and it just is suggesting that the security folks, including the key witness in the intelligence inquiry, have a right to their opinion as opposed to establishing expertise and fact. And it's unbelievable that we can't get to any kind of stipulations in an argument as to whether the weight of the offense is impeachable or not. I think that's what America would most want, right?
Yeah, 30 years ago, I knew every senator's name, how long they had been in the Senate, when they were up for re-election. Today, I can't tell you I know more than a quarter to a half of them, and when they're up for election, because they're much less important than they used to be. And the reason they're much less important is they don't behave the same way senators traditionally have. And again, that's Democrat and Republican. That you would expect a senator to be looking out for the national interest, and now it's the Democrat looks out for the Democratic and Republican.
Very well may have been.
Yeah. And they're just not the type of people that our generation grew up watching. And we're not really doing a good job emulating what we watch.
But here's the thing. That's been happening for a while, but this president rewiring presidentiality has accelerated rewiring senatorialism.
Yep.
And so
absolutely. But I'm going to say that Senator Kennedy and others, if you're going to do this, understand that when President Warren nationalizes all the health care in the country using a national emergency power, they are the ones who wrote her that check. That what they're doing is they're giving President a completely blank check right now. That check is cashed by the next president.
Meaning executive authority unchecked.
Executive authority, you get elected, you can do what you want.
So is there a chance, we only have 45 seconds here, is there a chance that something develops, some understanding, some nuance of the story, something like that becomes more, for lack of a better term, impeachable, and the Senate has a harder time? We'll get there. I mean, you're going to make some regular visits. We'll get there when we get there. But are you feeling that this story is not yet written, or is it already written?
I think there's a 1% chance
1%.
that things will change.
1%?
Yes, I haven't given up all hope.
Well, that's a lottery ticket.
Highly unlikely. No, it's not. A lottery ticket, 1 in 240 million.
You must play it a lot.
No.
You check the odds?
No, it's probably 140
You a Powerball guy?
Oh, 500 million, that's
1%. That's a very small number.
It is a small number.
The Democrats better get their act together for the presidential race, or this thing is over.
You see, I believe they have their act together. I just think we're paying a lot of attention to things that don't matter in 3 months.
And so there you have it. Thank you, sir. Final word next. Oh, of course, and then there's NATO, and we've got that going on too. So we will try to touch base and get some local expertise on that this week. And later in the week, we'll start to really dig in and see if we can't pry apart what's happening in Pawtucket. When you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars of development and near $100 million of taxpayer money involved in the infrastructure of it, it requires us to pay attention to it. And with the tumult and the roller coaster ride that Pawtucket has been through with the Paw Sox, now soon to be the Woo Sox, and all of that, I think, well, we got to weigh in and get you the story. I promise we shall. We'll talk to you on the radio tomorrow at 3 and back here tomorrow night. Good night.